السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين. أحمدك ربي حمد الشاكرين، وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وإمام المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، كل ضلالة في النار. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. All praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most gracious, the most merciful. Praise Him, seek His help and forgiveness. We bear witness there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we bear witness that Muhammad is the last and final messenger. He said, blessing upon him sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, inshallah tonight we continue our journey with the biography of the prophets. Last time we were talking about Prophet Sulaiman. We spoke about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gifted him with the mulk, with the kind of kingdom that no one had and no one will ever have in the future, because this is the dua of Sulaiman alayhi salam. He made the dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him a type of kingdom that no one will have. And indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bounty over Sulaiman was countless. We also spoke about the story of Sulaiman and Saba, the queen of Saba, Bilqis. And we mentioned that there's few lessons to be extracted from that particular story out of the biography of Sulaiman alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from young age, He granted him lots of wisdom. And remember when we mentioned as well about when he was sitting with his father, and two men came to ask for a verdict, and Sulaiman gave his opinion, and it was spot on opinion. We also learned from that how father should value their children's opinion and respect that and encourage them to have their own thought. Back to Bilqis and Sulaiman alayhi salam, there's many lessons to be learned from that story. The first one is that the hoopoe, or the bird that who found out about Bilqis and her people, that they worship the sun instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was in a situation, would he follow the commandment of Sulaiman and go back to the army, or shall he go and seek more information and enlighten Sulaiman alayhi salam so he can take actions? And this is a fiqhi ruling, to choose if there's two maslahah, of two things that will benefit the ummah, you choose the most important one first. And for example, if there's a janazah prayer in the mosque, whether you pray the janazah or you sit down and read the Quran or pray nafil, of course it is more recommended to do the more beneficial to the community, to yourself, from many angles, like seeking the good deeds. And also following the janazah is one of the things that the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to do. So you pray the janazah and you can pray the nafil later, or you read the Quran another time. So the hoopoe, or the bird, he decided to take actions without going back to Sulaiman first, because he was running out of time. So he went, collect information, and when he came back, when Sulaiman a.s. asked about him, he told him about everything. And this is another lesson to us as well, as parents, as leaders in the community, to always ask about our brothers and sisters in the community. If someone we know that regularly comes to the masjid and suddenly he disappears, we should give him a call, ask about him, where is he? And this is what Sulaiman did. فَتَفَقَّدَ الطَّيْرَ وَتَفَقَّدَ الطَّيْرَ. When he was looking around for his army, and particularly for birds, he found that one is missing. And this is the quality of a leader, that always look after the people under his care. This is for us as well, as parents, teachers, all elders in the family. That is our responsibility to always look after the youngsters. And when the hope of the bird came with a genuine reason, he didn't punish him. Remember, he said he will punish him unless he brings something, a good excuse. And he brought the good excuse. So Sulaiman decided not to punish him because that was a good excuse. And this is also part of the akhlaq and the manners of Sulaiman alayhi salam. Great manners, great mannerism of dealing with everyone. When he says, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described in the Quran, سَنَنْظُرُ أَصَدَقْتَ أَمْ كُنْتَ مِنَ الْكَاذِبِينَ. We'll find out if you're telling the truth or you're lying. So he gave him the benefit of doubt, and he would listen to his story and judge it himself without making quick judgment. Also, we learn from this story that prophets, they don't know the unseen. They don't know the ghaib. Because if Sulaiman knew about it, he wouldn't knew about the people of Saba, right? So this is a great evidence that prophets are like a human being. They don't know the future. They don't know the unseen. We also learn from the response of Bilqis. She was a smart woman. She was a leader in her community. And she decided to ask her elders before take actions as well. Like a shura majlis, before taking actions. She is a leader, but she can't make any judgment before seeking the shura. And this is a great lesson as well to all of us. And she hinted that, maybe we should fight this king. But they advised her that, it's not a good idea. They probably will come and destroy us. So maybe we'll try something else, which is softer approach by bribing that king. So they decided to send a gift, and Sulaiman, of course, didn't accept the gift. And then later on, Sulaiman alayhi salam brought her to him. He sent her a letter. إنه من سليمان وإنه بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألا تعلوا علي وأتوني مسلمين. This is also show great deal of humility and great deal of good akhlaq and manners. Sulaiman, when he sent the letter, he said إنه من سليمان. He didn't say إنه from the great king of all world, Sulaiman. He said إنه من سليمان. He was humble in his approach when he's giving da'wah. He was the greatest man at that time, the greatest king at that time. But he knew that all was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the greatest of all. So she accepted the invitation, and she accepted Islam. And if you look into it, that's all because of the bird, the one who narrated her story to Sulaiman alayhi salam. And Sulaiman alayhi salam sent da'wah, give da'wah. Bilqis also was an example of a righteous woman, because when she found out about the truth, she wouldn't reject it. She accepted the truth and invited her people to follow Islam. So these are some great lessons from the story of Sulaiman alayhi salam and the people of Saba. Allah mentioned it in Surah An-Naml in details. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given Sulaiman alayhi salam a great deal of kingship. He gave him the control of all animals, the language of all animals, all birds, and control of all the jinns. So Sulaiman's public work was largely carried out by the jinns. This was a punishment for their sins of making people believe that they were all powerful. They knew the unseen. They said to the people, we knew the unseen and could foresee the future. That's what the jinn used to do before Sulaiman alayhi salam time. So as a punishment for what they said and what they did to the people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given Sulaiman full control of the jinn, full power over the jinn. And they would do anything he would ask them to do without question. As a prophet, it was Solomon's duty to remove such false belief from his followers, and that was indeed a great way of showing that, by taking control of the jinns. Sulaiman alayhi salam lived for a long time, and all creatures were subject to him. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Exalted, ordained for him to die. His life and death were full of wonders and miracles. Thus his death harmonized with his life and glory. His death, like his life, was unique. The people had to learn that the future is known neither by the jinns nor by the prophets. So even his death was a great message to everyone has doubts still about the jinns, that they knew the future. So his death was a great message and strong message to everyone who had these misconceptions about the jinn, that they know everything. So Sulaiman alayhi salam passed away on his staff while he watching the jinn working for him in one of the mines. And he passed away for over 100 years. Without the jinn knowing he passed away or not, they thought that he was watching over them. And they were working hard all that time. Until an earth ant ate his staff. And then he collapsed. His body collapsed after that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reprimanded them in the Quran, saying if they knew when Sulaiman died, they would have stopped working for him. And as soon as Sulaiman passed away, they stopped. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about this in the Quran, and we caused a fount of molten brass to flow for him. And there were jinns that worked in front of him by the leave of his Lord. And whosoever of them turned aside from our command, we shall cause him to taste of the torment of the blazing fire. They worked for him what he desired, making high rooms, images, basins as large as reserves, and making cauldrons fixed in their places. Work you, O family of David, with thanks. But a few my slaves are grateful. Then when we decreed death for him, meaning Sulaiman, nothing informed them, referring to the jinns, of his death except a little worm of the earth, which kept slowly nagging away at his stick. So when he fell down, the jinns saw clearly that if they had known the unseen, they would not have stayed in the humiliation torment. So they realized, and that was the death itself was also a great message to everyone who had small doubts about the jinn knowing the unseen. And yet we see these days in some of our countries that people go asking people to find out what's going to happen in the future for them. They go to future tellers, and those future tellers ask the jinns and play with the jinns, and the jinns betray them, and all of this, hoping that they know the unseen, or they hear the unseen, which is all false and lies. So come after Prophet Sulaiman, Prophet Isaiah or Shia. He was among the prophets between David and Zechariah around that time. And if you remember, we said before that there was a lot of prophets were sent down to the people of Banu Israel, the Israelites. A lot of prophets. And many of them not mentioned in the Quran. Only few has been mentioned. So Isaiah, he was also a great prophet of Islam. He was one of the prophets who prophesied about Isa alayhi salam and also about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He told the people that there's going to be prophets in the future. The name is Isa and the name of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And there was a good king during that time called Hezekiah. He listened and was obedient to Isaiah in what he advised him to do and prohibited for the good of the state. The people were greatly terrified. The king asked Isaiah, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveal to you regarding Shnibud and his army? That's another evil king. He was about to attack this town. So the good king went to Isaiah the prophet and asked him, what shall we do in this situation? What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to you about this? So the prophet responded, he said, he has not yet revealed anything to me. Then the revelation came down for King Isaiah to appoint a successor as he wished, because his end was at hand. So some news that he was about to die. When Isaiah told him this, the king turned to the Qibla, the direction of Salah, and made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, weeping and invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the all-powerful and majestic, with a sincere heart, trust and patience. He said, O Lord of the Lords and God of gods, benevolent and merciful, one whom neither sleep nor nodding can overpower, remember me for my deeds and my judgment over the children of Israel. And all that was from you, and you know it is better than I do. My open acts and my secrets are with you. Beautiful dua from the king to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala straight away answered his prayers because of his sincere heart and his sincere dua. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Isaiah to tell him the glad tidings that he had compassion for his weeping and would extend his life for a further 15 years and save him from the enemy. So these all glad tidings to the king and the people of Isaiah. Sennacherib, which is the evil king, he was about to attack. When Isaiah told his king, Hezekiah, his disease was healed, evil and sadness departed. And he fell prostrate, saying, O Lord, it is you who grant kingship to whomever you wish, and dethrone whomever you wish, and elevates whomever you wish, and degrades whomever you wish. Knower of the unseen and the evident. And lo, you are the first and the last, the manifest and the perceived. You grant mercy and answer my prayer of the troubled ones. When he raised his head, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Isaiah to command the king to extract the water of the fig and apply it to his sore, and he would be whole and cured. He did so and was cured. So this is a great lesson to all of us as well. He made the dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted dua, but there is some action for the servants to do. Right? So we are encouraged to make dua, but also not just to wait for dua to be answered while we're sitting not doing anything. Right? This is a great message. When we make dua, we need to take actions. We need to be positive and productive in order for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our dua. For example, if you sit at the mosque all day long, make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send you, some burgers. Would that happen? Could happen. Yeah, someone will bring it to you. But it won't happen every time. Or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will pay for your bills, will pay for your rent. Right? You need to take actions. You need to make dua, but at the same time, you work hard. This is the true reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you remember the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the man came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked him about his camel. Shall he rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he parked the camel next to the mosque? Or what shall he do? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam advised him to a'qilha wa tawakkal. So you rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after you've done your part. You make dua, you do the right thing, and then you rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed the enemies of Isaiah and Hezekiah by sending death upon the army of Sennacherib. In the morning they were all corpse, subhanallah, all died, except Sennacherib and 5 of his companions, among them Bukhnaster, the king of Israel, immediately sent for them, put them in shackles, and display them in the land for 70 days to spite and insult them. Every day each of them was fed a loaf of barley bread. After 70 days he confined them in prison. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Isaiah that the king should send them back to their country so that they might warn their people what would happen to them. When they returned, Sennacherib gathered his people and told them what had happened to them. The priests and magicians said to him, "We told you about their Lord and their prophets, but you did not listen to us. It is a nation which with their God nobody can overcome." So Sennacherib was afraid of Allah. He died 7 years later. Ibn Ishaq also reported that when the king Uzziah of Israel died, the Israelite condition deteriorated. There was politician confusion and there were wickedness increased. Isaiah preached to them what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to him, directing them to righteousness and warning them of Allah, severe punishment. His preaching made him their enemy and they decided to kill him, so he escaped from them. As Allah mentioned in the Quran about the Israelites, that they killed a lot of prophets. They tried to kill Isaiah. And when I narrate to you that what's happened next, and this is one of the Israeliyat, it's not mentioned in the Quran, not mentioned in the Sunnah, but Ibn Kathir mentioned it in his book Al-Bidayah wal-Nihaya, or story and the story of the prophets, from Ibn Ishaq, that he reported that an Israelite interpretation which said that when Isaiah was passing by a tree, so this is an Israelite story, or Israeliyat, we talked about it before in the past. This is one of them. When Isaiah was passing by a tree, it opened and he entered therein, but Shaitan saw him and held on to the lobe of his garment. So he was walking in the forest and then he saw a tree that was opened. Somehow he entered inside and then Shaitan held his garment and kept holding into it and stuck out of it. So when the people saw what happened, they thought they saw it and saw that he inside the tree. They brought a saw and saw the tree with Isaiah on it. So they cut him open. Indeed, from Allah we come and to Him we return. Then there are a few prophets after Isaiah, like for example the prophet Jeremiah or Jeremiah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about that time of Banu Israel, they were very corrupted. A lot of prophets were sent to them. And then after that was Prophet Uzair. Prophet Daniel first and then Prophet Uzair. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned his story in the Quran, Ezra or Uzair. Ishaq ibn Bishr reported on the authority of Ibn Abbas and others that Ezra was a saint and was a wise man. He went out one day to his own farm, as was his custom. About noon he came to the desert, ruined place, and felt the heat. He entered the ruined town and dismounted his donkey. So this is a town that no one lives in it. It's empty. So after his journey he entered that town and he was tired. So he got off his donkey and about to rest. Taking figs and grapes in his basket, he went under a shade of a tree and ate his food. Then he got up to look around. The people had long been lost and he saw bones in that town. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described it in the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, oh how will Allah ever bring it to life after its death? He said that question. أَنَّا يُحْيِي هَذِهِ اللَّهُ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا. He said this is not out of doubt, but out of curiosity. He was wondering how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not because he doubted the ability or the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring people back to life, but he wanted to see how it looked like when people come back from death to life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent an angel of death to take his own life, to take Ezra's life. He remained dead for 100 years. فَأَمَاتَهُ اللَّهُ مِئَةَ عَامٍ ثُمَّ بَعَثَهُ. After 100 years had passed, and 3 had been changed in Israelite affairs, and there had been changed in Israelite affairs. Lots of things could happen in 100 years, right? Allah sent an angel upon Ezra to revive his heart and his eyes in order for him to feel and see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revives the dead. The angel said, "For how long did you sleep?" He said, "A day or part of a day." You couldn't even tell that he was dead for 100 years. Sometimes when we fall asleep, for 2 minutes, it feels like 10 hours, and sometimes the other way around, right? Yeah? We sleep for 10 hours and we don't feel like I need to go back to bed. Feel like 2 minutes. So he slept for 100 years and he thought it was just a day or half a day. He said this because he knew he had slept early in the afternoon and woke up late in the afternoon. The angel said, "You remained asleep for 100 years." He ate and drank the food which he had prepared before he was overtaken by that long sleep. So his food was returned with him as well. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserved that food for him until he come back from death. Then the angels revived his donkey, and he saw what happened to the donkey with his own eyes. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, "And look at your donkey, thus we have made of you a sign for the people. Look at the bones, how we bring them together and close them with flesh." When this was clearly shown to him, he said, "I know now that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to do all things." So after he wakes up, where he should go? Back home to see his family, if they're still alive. So he rode on his donkey and entered his native place. But the people did not recognize him, nor did his household, except the maid. She was an old woman. He asked her, "Is this the house of Ezra?" She said, "Yes." But the people have long forgotten Ezra. He has gone for 100 years now. We don't know where is he. He disappeared. So he said, "I am Ezra. Allah had taken my life for 100 years and has now returned it to me." She said, "Ezra used to be answered when he prayed to Allah." So she wanna make sure that he telling the truth. You know, Ezra used to be a good man. He's always his prayers answered. Can you make dua for me? Smart woman. So she said, "Pray to Allah to cure me of blindness, if you are Ezra." He prayed for her and massaged her eyes and took her by the hand. She got up by the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The crippled woman stood up and walked. She opened her eyes and saw her blindness was gone. She said, "I bear witness that you are Ezra." So she rushed to the assembly of the Israelites. Ezra's son was 118 years old. So that's his son, 118 years old. It's like someone coming back from the future, right? So his son is older than him. And his children's children now were lords of the assembly. They were leader of the community. She called out to them saying, "This is Ezra come to you." They accused her of lying. They couldn't understand what's happening here. She said, "I'm your old maid. He has just prayed to Allah for me, and here I am, whole again, walking and seeing." The people stood up and looked at him. His son said, "My father had a mark between his shoulders, a black mole." And they discovered it. They said, "None among us memorized the Torah since Nabshandas burnt it, one of the evil kings, except Ezra. And there was only one copy of the Torah, which was hidden by Sarucha, He buried it in the days of that evil king, in a place none but Ezra knows. So it's only Ezra know about it. So that's another great evidence. So Ezra led the people to the hidden place where the Torah was hidden. The copy of the Torah was hidden from that evil king. Its leaves had rotted, but the book itself crumbled. Ezra sat under the shade of the tree, surrounded by the children of Israel, and copied out the Torah for them from that script. Imagine sitting down, copying the Torah by hand again. Henceforth, the Jews said that Ezra is the son of Allah. قالت اليهود عزير ابن الله وقالت النصارى مسيح ابن الله. They thought that he is the son of Allah, والعياذ بالله, because he came back from the dead and wrote down the Torah or copied the Torah for them. He had been copying the Torah for Ezekiel in the land of darkness, in the hermitage of Ezekiel. The village which was ruins is said to be Sharibada. Ibn Abbas commanded, so it is Allah said, we have made of you a sign for the people. That is for the Israelites, in that he has sitting among his children, the old men, and he is a youth, subhanallah. He died as a 40-year-old, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resurrected him at the same age on the day of his death. So he died as 40 and came back as 40, and his children was 118. Then come after Prophet Ezra, Prophet Zechariah. There's a mention of Prophet Zechariah in the Quran, of course, in many parts of the Quran. So the years had taken their toll on the Prophet Zechariah, peace be upon him. He was now old and bent with age, in his 90s. Despite his feebleness, he went to the temple daily to deliver his sermons. Zechariah was not a rich man, but he was always ready to help those in need. His one disappointment in life was that he had no children, for his wife was barren. This worried him, for he feared there was no one after him to carry out his work. The people needed a stronger leader, for it they were left on their own. They would move away from Allah's teaching and change the holy laws to suit themselves. So that was the intention and the sadness for Prophet Zechariah to have a son, not just because of any father want to have a son for the, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described in the Quran, al-mal wal-banuna zinatul hayati dunya, that children and wealth are the adornment of this life. And this is for everyone, human being, like normal people like us. But for prophets, it was for much better reason. He wanted someone to follow the teaching of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be a leader in the community, to guide people to Islam after him. He was getting old and he needs some help in giving da'wah. So that was the whole entire reason for him. Because some people might think, and he was sad because he wanted children, just normal. But he wanted someone to carry on the message of Islam, to carry on the message of da'wah to his own people. During one of his visits to the temple, he went to check on Mary, who was living in a secluded room of the temple. He was surprised to find fresh out of the seasoned fruit in her room, as Allah described it in the Quran. That the season or the fruits comes to her, and he was surprised to see that. Beside him, no one had entry to her room. When he inquired, she told him that the fruit was from Allah. Ya Maryam, anna laki hadha? Qalat huwa min indillah. It is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She found it every morning. But why was he so surprised? She asked him. Did he not know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provide without measures from whom He wills? This noble girl had opened these eyes to a startling idea. So she opened his eyes to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him a righteous son. So he turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him Yahya. So Zechariah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, Kaf ha ya ayn sad. This is the mention of Mary, the mercy of your Lord to his slave Zechariah, when he called out to his Lord Allah, a call in secret, saying, My Lord, indeed my bones have grown feeble, and grey hair has spread on my head, and I have never been unblessed in my invocation to you, my Lord, and verily I fear my relatives after me, since my wife is barren. So give me from yourself an heir who shall inherit me. An inheritance of the prophets is not wealth. What is the inheritance of the prophets? It's the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowledge, Islam. That's the inheritance of the prophets. يرثني ويرث من آل يعقوب وجعله ربي رضيا. So he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for someone to take the lead after him, someone inherit the message, the da'wah, the risalah, and give it to those come after. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded. Allah said, O Zechariah, verily we give you the glad tidings of a son. His name will be Yahya, John. We have given that name to none before him. So it's the first John, first Yahya. And this is an honor. We have given that name to none before him. It's an honor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to name someone. He said, My Lord, how can I have a son when my wife is barren and I have reached the extreme old age? He said, So it will be. Your Lord says, It is easy for me. Certainly I have created you from when you had been nothing. Many examples in the Quran. Also we have similar story to this. Prophet Ibrahim, when he had his son at old age as well. And when Zechariah asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not out of doubt, but out of curiosity again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded that, He created you out of nothing, like He created Adam out of nothing. He can give you a son out of nothing. Zechariah said, My Lord, appoint for me a sign. Give me a sign. He said, Your sign is that you shall not speak unto mankind for 3 nights. Though having no bodily defect. Then he came out to his people from Al-Mihrab, the prayer place or private room for prayer. He told them by signs to glorify Allah's praises in the morning and in the afternoon. It was said to his son, O John, hold fast to the scriptures, the Torah. And we gave him wisdom while yet a child, and made him as emphatic to men as mercy or grant from us, and pure from sins. John, and he was righteous and dutiful towards his parents, and he was neither an arrogant nor disobedient to Allah or to his parents. And salamun, peace on him, the day he was born, the day he dies, and the day he will raise up in the next life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said in the Quran, At that time Zechariah invoked his Lord, saying, O my Lord, grant me from you a good offspring. You are indeed the all-hearer of invocation. Then the angels called him while he was standing in prayer in Al-Mihrab, praying place or private room, saying, Allah gives you glad tidings of John confirming believing in the word from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be, and he was. Son of Maryam, noble, keeping away from sexual relationship with women, a prophet from among the righteous. He said, "O my Lord, how can I have a son when I am very old and my wife is barren?" Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Thus Allah does what He wills." He said, "O my Lord, make a sign for me." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Your sign is that you shall not speak to mankind for 3 days except with signals. And remember your Lord much by praising Him again and again, and glorify Him in the afternoon and in the morning." So Yahya was born. Yahya alayhi salam was born a stranger to the world of children who used to amuse themselves, as he was serious all the time. Most children took delight in torturing animals, whereas he was merciful to them. He fed the animal from his food until there was nothing left for him. And this is the sunnah of all the prophets indeed. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said in the hadith, وَفِي كُلِّ كَبِدٍ رَطِبَةٍ أَجْرٍ. Every living being there is ajr. When you feed every living being, there is ajr. Kabidin ratibatin mean a moist liver in our bodies. So always there is a reward for feeding. And there is plenty of narrations about the reward of feeding and looking after animals in Islam. This is part of ihsan. This is part of excellence in Islam. A great level of iman. To take care of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned about the story of that woman from the Israelite, that she held a cat in one room in her house and until the cat died. She didn't provide any food and she didn't let it go to eat from the street. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala disliked what happened and punished that woman for sending her to hellfire for torturing that poor cat. And we also remember the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam that the man entered paradise for taking care of a thirsty dog. When he was walking in the desert, he was very thirsty and he found a well. He went down and drank, and when he came out, he found that dog near the well eating or licking the sand out of thirst. So what the man did, he took his shoes off, went down to the well, filled it up with water, and fed that, or give the water to the dog. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala thanked him for that and grant him paradise. So you might not know that the simple act like this, it could save you on the day of judgment, right? Sulaiman alayhi salam, the one we just mentioned his story not long ago. Remember when we mentioned about the ant, what she said? She saw the army of Sulaiman coming towards them. So she started warning her fellow members of the community. Right? She said, لا يحتمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون. She already made excuse that not because Sulaiman is a bad person, but because they couldn't see us. They might not see us, and they without them knowing what's happening underneath their feet, they might crush us. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran. That's why Sulaiman laughed. And he thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessing that He has given him the understanding of the language of the animals and insects and birds. He was grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he could hear the ant so he can protect them as well. And don't crush them or destroy their homes. So there's always goodness, and this is the message of all the prophets. It's part of Islam, to take care of animals, to take care of the environment. It is our responsibility. And Yahya alayhi salam he used to look after animals at a young age. He used to feed them out of his own food and take care of them. He used to like reading as well since childhood. When he grew up, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Exalted, called upon him saying, O John, O Yahya, hold fast to the scriptures, the Torah. And we give him wisdom while yet a child. From young age, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving him wisdom. To mention some of John's quality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided him to read the book of jurisprudence closely. Thus he became the wisest and most knowledgeable man of that time. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala endowed him with the faculties of passing judgment on people's affairs. And this is something we are encouraged as Muslims to seek knowledge. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the hadith, Sahih hadith, "Man yuridillahu bihi khayran, yufaqihu fi din." Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to goodness for him, He grant him knowledge of the deen. We are encouraged, yet required to learn about our deen, the basics of our deen. As the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in another hadith, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ وَمُسْلِمَةٍ. Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, seeking knowledge is compulsory on every Muslim. And he said in the hadith as well, that the malaika of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lower the wings to the seeker of the knowledge, out of humility. This is all to encourage us to seek knowledge all the time, especially the knowledge of our deen. And any type of knowledge that will benefit the community, will benefit our country, will benefit our people. Not just the knowledge of Islam. Of course, the knowledge of Islam is the most honorable one. The Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, this comes first. Anything else come after. Any beneficial knowledge to the community is also we are encouraged to seek and educate ourselves so we can benefit the community. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Wallahu akhrajakum. And listen to this ayah carefully. Wallahu akhrajakum min butuni ummahatikum la ta'lamuna shay'a wa ja'ala lakum as-sam'a wal absara wal af'ida qalilan ma tashkurun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have brought you forth from the wombs of your mothers. Know nothing. Right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us sam', hearing, wal absar, seeing, wal af'ida, heart and minds. Why? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us those as tools to thank Him. وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. So the first thing, when you realize, when you learn, when you have knowledge, you will always remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you thank Him. That's why the knowledgeable status, or the knowledgeable people, they know about Islam, about the deen, about the basic of the deen, are honored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Can we make a comparison between those who knew and those who don't know the deen? So the equation is important, that shall we know about our deen or not? There's a big difference between those who know and those who don't. So we are encouraged to seek knowledge. This is the message of all the prophets. Look at Yahya alayhi salam. First thing we learn from his story, that he was eager to learn. He used to like read at young age. Allah is giving him the wisdom, and part of his wisdom that he liked reading from young age. He was very knowledgeable. Do we teach our children to read at young age? As parents? كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. That's what the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith. And the first thing we need to teach our children to read is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Learn how to read the Quran. This is very important for us as parents and future parents, inshallah, to teach our children to read the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because without the Quran, without the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we'll be lost. We won't be successful in this life if we miss out on the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. John alayhi salam reached maturity. His compassion for his parents as well as for the people and all creatures increased greatly. He called people to repent their sins. There were quite a number of traditions told about John. Ibn Asakir related that one time his parents were looking for him and found him at the Jordan River. When they met him, they wept sorely, seeing his great devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, great and majestic. Ibn Wahb said that according to Malik, grass was the food of John ibn Zechariah, and he wept sorely in fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A chain of narrators reported that Idris al-Khawalawi said, "Shall I not tell you, he who had the best food, it is John ibn Zechariah, who joined the beast at dinner, fearing to mix with the men." So why John always wept? Ibn Mubarak stated that Wahb ibn al-Ward narrated that Zechariah did not see his son for 3 days. He found him weeping inside a grave which he had dug and in which he resided. So he dug a hole and laid in it for a amount of 3 days, was weeping. So when his father Zechariah found him, he says, "My son, I have been searching for you, and you are dwelling in this grave weeping. O father, did you not tell me that between paradise and hell is only a span, and it will not be crossed except by tears of weepers?" He said to him, "Weep then, my son." Then they wept together. And these are the prophets. We're talking about prophets, not just normal people like us. They were remembering Allah, weeping to Him all the time. And this is a great lesson to all of us. When was the last time your eyes shed some tears out of khashya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When was the last time? Wallahi, this is a question we need to ask ourselves. When was the last time you stood in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the darkness of the night, weeping and making dua to Him, praying to Him? Maybe it's something that we need to practice, bring it back to life again, if we miss out on this. And these were the prophets, the role models and the examples that what they used to do all the time. And there were no need to this. The sins were forgiven, they were granted paradise and guaranteed paradise. Prophet ﷺ himself used to make istighfar over 70 times a day. And he was the one with no sins. What about us? How many times we make istighfar a day? We need to reflect, and we see some ways how shaitan trick us to make us neglect our basics of seeking forgiveness, making istighfar, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing dhikr, praying at night, tahajjud. But it's never too late. It's a wake-up call to all of us to remember that, and to remember how the prophets themselves, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they used to weep and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they were the men that were guaranteed paradise, the men with no sins. Other narrations says that John alayhi salam, Yahya, said, "The dwellers of paradise are sleepless out of the sweetness of Allah's bounty. That is why the faithful must be sleepless because of Allah's love in their hearts. How far between the two luxuries, how far between them. They say John wept so much that tears marked his cheeks." Yahya alayhi salam has a special love for nature. He found comfort in the open and never cared about food. He ate leaves, herbs, and sometimes locusts. He slept anywhere in the mountains or in holes in the ground. He sometimes would find a lion or a bear as he entered a cave but being deeply absorbed in praising Allah, he never heeded them. The beast easily recognized Yahya as the prophet who cared for all the creations, so he would leave the cave. So they would leave the cave bowing their heads. So he had a great connection with nature, with everything around him. He would eat anything, he would sleep anywhere, and he wouldn't worry about the beast around him, because he was fully absorbed with the remembering of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the khashya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has no worry about anything in his life but to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and call upon him. Is it time? Inshallah, we'll conclude tonight and we'll continue next week inshallah. قولوا ما تسمعون استغفر الله لي ولكم استغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم